Hello there, BookTube friends and book lovers everywhere. I am here to tell you what I read last month. The books that I finished were Jedediah Smith, No Ordinary Mountain Man, Raising Hare, Elizabeth and Her German Garden, and Judson, A Missionary Life for Burma, Scary Stories for Young Foxes, The Wide, Wide Sea, Night and Up from Slavery. So let me just briefly tell you what each book was about. Jedediah Smith, No Ordinary Mountain Man, was about a very young mountain man who formed a company. He was actually a businessman from St. Louis. He formed a company to sell furs. In order to sell furs, they had to go out and trap poor innocent beavers that didn't deserve to die. So I'm a vegetarian, so I can't help but think this way. Anyhow, I wasn't positively impressed with the life of Jedediah Smith, but I thought it was a very good biography telling about who he was and how he lived. And there was unfortunately a lot of death in the book. A lot of people think that Jedediah Smith was a great Christian missionary, but he was not. He didn't intend to be a missionary. He was raised Christian. He did not swear or drink like the other mountain men in his company, but he was not out there intending to be a missionary. His intent was to go out and kill beavers. And so I was not happy with his life as much as I wish I had been, because I live very close to the Jedediah Smith State Park. I've gone swimming in the Smith River, which is not far away, and I just wanted to think better things of him, but unfortunately. Let's move on to the next book. It was Raising Hare by Chloe Dalton. This was a memoir, and it was about a woman who found a hare, a baby hare, in her garden, and the mother didn't come back to get it or help it, so she ended up raising the hare. She took it into her home and she figured out how to feed it, and it grew to adulthood, and I just loved this memoir. I thought it was very sweet. The next one I finished reading was Elizabeth and Her German Garden. I read it with 3 other booktubers. You'll find their name and channel links in the description of this video. And I was not quite as negative as a lot of other people were regarding this book. See, a lot of people think it's fiction, and I do not believe it's fiction. I believe it was a series of her own journal entries, and that it reflected her own beliefs and thoughts. People don't like Elizabeth because she was very unfriendly to her guests. She was not hospitable in the least, except that she was being forced into it in a way. So I thought that because she was young and this was her first book attempt, I gave her a little benefit of the doubt. So I gave it 4 stars because it was just a series of journal entries. It wasn't a real novel. And I believe that with all my heart, because I am a writer and I have written a lot of journal entries and I've written a lot of novels, and I kind of know the difference. So there's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. Anyhow, the next book that I finished reading was this one. I actually have a hard copy. And Judson, A Missionary Life for Burma. Loved this book. It was really kind of a slog to get through because it was not a memoir. It wasn't written in a very story-like manner. Instead, it was written with a lot of excerpts from Anne Judson's letters and journals and other people's journals or letters, and that just slowed everything down. If it had just been a story, it would have been a lot thinner, and I would have found out about Anne Judson a lot faster. However, I still gave it 5 stars because Anne Judson's life was just amazing. She and her husband went from New England here in the United States to Burma to live, to be missionaries in 1812, and just a beautiful story of all the work that they did to be missionaries in Burma. Impressive, very impressive. So, like, if you're a Christian, this is a book you might want to read. The next book that I finished reading was Scary Stories for Young Foxes by Christian McKay Heidicker. This book, it was very scary if you are a fox. If you are a young fox, this book contains a lot of things that would be very, very frightening. Not for the faint of heart. There was a lot of unfortunate death in this book. What was interesting was the way it was written, because, okay, there was a group of foxes that went to a storyteller, and she was telling them the stories. So those pages that tell about her telling the foxes the stories are on black. That part of the story is in black pages. So then when you get to the part which is actually the story that she was telling, they're on white pages, a completely different group of foxes. I thought it was a lot of fun to read. But like I said, not for the faint of heart. And if you're a young fox, definitely scary. And so the next book that I finished reading was The Wide, Wide Sea, Imperial Ambition, First Contact, and the Fateful Final Voyage of Captain James Cook by Hampton Sides. And this is, I guess, a very recent book. I had a really hard time getting a copy on Libby because the wait list was like forever. So I finally ended up purchasing a copy through audible.com. Basically, their voyage was to go check to see if there was a northwest passageway that would connect the Pacific Ocean with the Atlantic. And of course, they got up to that area near Alaska, and there was too much snow for them to keep going, so they had to backtrack. They ended up in Hawaii, and there was a lot of discontent. They visited not only Hawaii, but other islands in the Pacific, and I would say it almost never turned out really good in the end. So, interesting book, great biography. If you like survival literature, maritime literature, I think it is a very good book to read. And the next book that I finished reading is Night by Elie Wiesel, a very sad book about a young boy's experience in Auschwitz concentration camp with his father. You know how those things go. He did survive, but a lot of others that he knew did not. So the final book that I finished reading in April was this one, Up from Slavery by Booker T. Washington. Excellent book. The first 5 chapters in the book tell about his attempts to get an education when he was young. This was not long after slavery ended. He was 10 years old when slavery ended. So he grew up just wanting to be educated. It was the most important thing to him. And then when he became an adult and he graduated from the college, he also went to a seminary school, and he started teaching school. And the rest of the book is about his career in education. Very, very impressive. He is the founder of Tuskegee. It's a university now in Alabama. I recommend this to everyone. It's a good book and well worth reading to find out how much trouble he went to, not only to raise himself up out of slavery, but many others that he attempted to raise up by giving them a proper and worthy education. So that's it. Those are the books that I finished reading during the month of April, and I hope that this will be my final attempt at making this video. I've tried and tried this month and felt terribly blocked. So that's why this video is coming out at the end of May rather than the beginning of May when it should have been made. So maybe I'll do better next time. Thanks for listening.